Today, Mel Kiper released his second mock draft, and on Titans Today, we tell you who Tennessee selected with round 1, pick number 7, and break it all down to see if it was the right choice or if the Titans should go a different route than what Mel Kiper selected. We appreciate y'all hanging out with us. I'm your host of Titans Today, Jace Andrews, and I know that there's a lot of hoorah about who the Titans will draft at number 7. Should it be an offensive lineman or will they go a playmaker? Well, now's your time to chime in as we start off the show with a question to our audience. Should the Titans draft an offensive lineman at round 1 at pick number 7? Type D for draft, type P for pass. I want you to be the GM here. You're Ran Carthon. What are you doing? You drafted an offensive lineman, then you're typing Y for yes. You drafted a wide receiver, tight end, somebody else, and then type P for pass. And the pick was Joe Alt. It's kind of the same thing over and over again. Joe Alt was the pick for Mel Kiper. Obviously, as we get closer to the draft season, more and more mock drafts will come out, meaning that there's going to be a more variety, at least, of who the Titans will select. I'm assuming we'll see some Malik Nabers. We'll see some Brock Bowers, maybe a couple other guys. Olu Fashanu was in one of those. But for now, it's still on Mel Kiper's board that Joe Alt will head to Tennessee and play with Brian Callahan and the newly reformatted Titans. Let's go through the whole mock draft, though, and kind of explain why this was wrong or why this was right. The first pick, as per usual, it's Caleb Williams going to Chicago. Jaden Daniels goes second to Washington, and then the third QB off the board on the third pick. Drake May heading to Foxborough to play on the Patriots. Marvin Harrison Jr. goes to Arizona. J.C. Latham. So, not the first offensive lineman off the board was Joe Alt. It was Latham at pick 5 to the Chargers. Now, here's where we get the Titans pick to come in as Rome Odunze goes to the Giants at pick 6. Joe Alt right there at pick 7, and then Dallas Turner followed by him at pick number 8. So, seeing this, knowing this, these 3 players were all available and the Titans could have picked them, those being Malik Nabers, Brock Bowers, and Olu Fashanu. Now, would I like one of these players more than Joe Alt? I don't really know. I think that there's a lot of right options and there's very few wrong options for the Tennessee Titans. Obviously, I think the offensive line is where they want to improve upon, but at the same time, I'm not going to say no to a generational tight end prospect and one of the better wide receiver prospects we've seen in the past couple of years. And so I know that we think the offensive line is where they're going to go, but is Alt the right pick, or should they get Fashanu? Well, here's your time to chime in. Is Joe Alt the right pick for the Tennessee Titans at number 7? If you think he is, type Y for yes. If you think he is not, think that they should go a different route and type in for no. Let's hear what Mel Kiper had to say about all of this after his mock draft, saying, Tennessee is a team to watch for a trade down. Whoa, we'll talk about that in a minute. As it has multiple roster holes, including at cornerback, wide receiver, and defensive line. General Manager Ran Carthon could try to acquire future draft capital. The organization already is without its third-round pick this year because of the move up for quarterback Will Levis a year ago. If the Titans are staying put, though, they could do much worse than Alt, my top-ranked tackle in the class. He is one of the most consistent pass blockers I've studied over the past few years. He just doesn't get beaten often. This would give them my top 2 all linemen in back-to-back drafts as they took Peter Skoronski at number 11 a year ago. Now, I want to talk about this for a second because, yes, all signs are pointing to Joe Alt being the selection for the Titans if he is available at round 1, pick 7. But I want to go more in depth on what exactly he said there. Talked about potentially trading down. What would that look like? We'll tell you in a minute, but on top of which, there's a lot of other things to discuss with this. One of those being Prize Picks, our sponsor here on Titans Today. So make sure you go check them out, prizepicks.com/CLNS. You can get a $100 deposit match by using code CLNS. Now, I know football season may be over, but the action on the floor is heating up. Whether it's tournament season or the fight for playoff home court, there's no shortage of high-stakes basketball moments this time of year. Get in on the excitement on Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy app, where you can turn hoops knowledge into serious cash. You know me. You've seen the show a lot. You know, I like the hardwood, but I'm more of a, let's get some dirt on my shoes. So I'm going with baseball here. Ronald Acuna Jr., 37.5, going the more on his season-long total home runs. Mookie Betts, 32.5, going the more on his season-long total home runs. And Chris Bryant, 19.5 season-long home runs. The cool thing with this, I get to track this the entire MLB season. You know, obviously daily fantasy sports, it's really fun. That's what I've been doing with football. It's what I've been doing with NBA. But baseball with these season-long projections, I get to kind of watch baseball the entire year and get excited as these three guys win me some money, and they could win you some money too. Now, if you are doing basketball, well, don't worry. They have injury insurance so that your entry will stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. So, if one of your players exits the game in the first half and then does not return the second half in a basketball game, that player projection will not count against the rest of your entry, as that will stay alive. Check it out at prizepicks.com/CLNS, and using code CLNS, you're going to get that first deposit match of up to $100. Quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, and an enormous selection of players and stat types that make Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. We'll have that link in the comments in the description of this. All right, before we get into the potential trade package would look like, let's make sure that alt is the right thing. So here's the thing. 4 sacks allowed in his entire college career is great. Obviously, just like Mel Kiper mentioned, that's the top-rated guy he has at offensive line. Funny enough, though, he did have J.C. Latham going before alt, so kind of an interesting take there from him, as I guess he just has the Chargers liking Latham more. Not for me to answer, but at the same time, I like alt because you pair him with Skoronski, this line could be really, really good with 2 top-tier guys. Now, alt, obviously 4 sacks allowed in his career, but that doesn't really tell the whole story. His PFF grade does. Past 2 seasons, 90.7 and 91.4. Goodness. Like that's a crazy PFF grade, just like if you're kind of not familiar with the statistic. That's, in theory, a test grade of around 100 and 101.4. And then, of course, his rookie year, 78.8. That's still a high B in terms of grading percentages. Allowed 3 sacks that year. In his past 2 seasons, just 1 sack. The Hurries went down this year as well. I love him. I'm not going to sit here and say I don't. But they could go with a playmaker. Why? Because Brian Callahan said it in his open press conference, an introductory press conference rather. He mentioned that obviously it's nice to have the guys up front to block and protect your quarterback. But if you don't have the playmakers that surround them, then there's no point to have that extra time. Which has kind of got me thinking, well, maybe he's planning on drafting somebody else. That somebody else could be Malik Nabers. I think he's a great prospect to have, and I really think he'll be available at round 1 at pick 7. 1,500 yards this past year, 17.6 average, and 14 touchdowns with the Heisman Trophy winner, Jaden Daniels. This guy was playing out of his mind, and what's funny is he had guys like Brian Thomas Jr. to the right of him that he was also sharing with. You put him on the Titans team, where he's going to be right next to DeAndre Hopkins, this team could really, really, absolutely go nuclear next year, and I would love to see him. The second thing I want to talk about, though, regarding the Mel Kiper statement, is that the Titans could trade down. And it's not just from Mel Kiper, it's from Ran Carthon. He said it in yesterday's NFL Combine interview, saying he's not opposed to it. Obviously, the Titans are missing out on some draft capital, and given they have holes in multiple different positions, there's a chance that maybe, just maybe, they try and go after some more picks rather than getting a Joe Alt, a Malik Nabers, a Brock Bowers. Here's the picks they have currently for 2024. As you can see, they're missing the round 3 pick, as Mel Kiper mentioned. Got pick 7 right now, then pick 38, pick 106, pick 144, round 6, pick 183, round 7, pick 218, and round 7, pick 229. Those last 2 coming via trades, one of them being Kevin Byard. We got that round 7 pick. If you trade that round 1 pick, you could not only get a first-round pick on top of it, you could also get that third-round pick back. So you're trading back, say, to a couple picks back, and you're making sure that you actually get a third-round pick. What would that look like? Well, here's kind of a mock trade. This would be with the Las Vegas Raiders, who are in kind of need of a quarterback. Who's to say they would trade up for one? But they could be one of the ones who could trade up. And heck, if Drake May falls to pick 7, there's a potential this could work out. The Raiders would receive the Titans round 1 at pick 7, and the Titans, well, they'd get the round 1 pick 13 from the Las Vegas Raiders, and they'd get their round 3 pick at pick number 77. This would probably be a pretty good trade to make for both sides. Obviously, Ran Carthon said he's going to listen to everybody who wants to talk to him. He's not going to say no, but at the same time, he likes where he's at. And I kind of like where they are at, too, at pick number 7. There's some other stuff you could do with free agency, and honestly, right now, if T. Higgins wasn't franchise tagged, and if the Titans could potentially trade for him, sign him, I guess they could still trade for him, but if they could potentially sign him in free agency, I would probably say do this right away, because Well, it doesn't really matter too much. You can get an offensive later. You're not going to worry about your wide receivers. It'll work perfectly. But now, I think there's a lot of different scenarios that I could see Ran Carthon going with. Though, I want to ask, would you be happy with this trade for the Titans if they decided to trade down, get some more draft capital? Is that something that would be pleasing to you? Or is that something that you think, I don't know about that, Jace. I kind of want to stay at 7, get Joe Alt if he's there. If he's not, go Malik Nabers or Brock Bowers. But that's just kind of my opinion. Well, this is your chance to chime in. Get down there. 1 would be least happy with the scenario. 10 would be most happy with the scenario. What are you thinking about the Titans potentially trading back for future draft capital? My thing is you could still get an offensive lineman or a wide receiver there. The wide receiver draft class this year is very, very depth heavy. Honestly, at 13, you could potentially get Talisi Fuaga, who I think is really good. There's a potential chance for J.C. Latham to slide down to 13. Obviously, with the NFL Combine this week, we're going to be able to see a lot of how these guys either improve or fall in the draft way, and kind of get a new mock draft from Mel Kiper here in just a couple weeks, and will hopefully kind of reflect what happened at the NFL Combine. We'll have to see that, but either way, I don't think it's a bad option. I think what Ran Carthon said was correct. Listen to every offer. If one spikes your interest, well, then may as well think about it. But hey, there's no bad things that's going to come from listening to a trade offer, and there's no bad things that can come from hitting that subscribe button as well, because we're putting out Titans content pretty much on the daily at this point. So hit that sub button. I'm telling you, you're not going to want to miss it. We got long videos. We got shorts. And ultimately, we got Titans coverage that you're not going to find anywhere else on YouTube. Hitting that subscribe button, either scrolling down below, little red sub button, pressing that, or going to youtube.com/Titans Today and hitting subscribe. I would certainly appreciate it because we're pumping out content like never before. And as the draft gets closer, well, the more we get to talk about the potential of Joe Alt, Malik Nabers, Brock Bowers, or Olu Fashanu coming to Tennessee. We appreciate you watching this video. And as always, Titans fans, you know what to do. Tighten up and peace out.